television, Disney Plus finally did it. They've been having a heck of a time competing with HBO, Netflix, Prime Video, even Apple TV. How did Apple TV get in here all of a sudden? In fact, Apple TV launched its own new show tonight, The Studio, up against Daredevil. I mean, why? I mean, I'm all for healthy competition, but I think that's just stupid to have them debut at the same time on a Tuesday. Why did Apple abandon Thursdays? There's no shows dropping on Thursday. Why come over here? And with The Studio of all shows. I mean, maybe I could see picking a fight with Severance, but it's a weird choice. But anyway, this was really great from Disney Plus tonight. They're not caught up just yet. It's still not as good as those other shows. But these two episodes not only made, I think, for a very entertaining evening of streaming, but also, I think, reminded us of why we loved Daredevil and Kingpin so much in the first place. Yes, these two episodes, I think, come very close to the quality of not just the Netflix series, but to the quality of the comics. You know, the comics aren't always good, just like, like anything. But when they're good, they're really good. And this reminded me a lot of a really good Daredevil comic, particularly episode 5. But is it too little too late? We're 4 weeks into the show already. And I think that while it does trend to its credit on X or Twitter when it airs, it still really hasn't been the hot show that the MCU anticipated. And it certainly hasn't matched the hype that was there when it was first announced, nor when it was making the rounds on the convention circuit last year. Why do you think, Daredevil just hasn't quite connected now that it's finally arrived? But these two episodes are so good, I'm not quite sure why they doubled them up. I mean, I do kind of know why they doubled them up, but I feel bad because I think each one could have stood on their own. After episode 5, I was feeling good. I was happy, but they were like, here's another one. Now, I'd heard some people say that episode 5 was a filler episode, but I disagree. I loved it. I thought it was so good. It reminded me of a really great standalone issue of a comic book that kind of resets the story and reminds you of why you liked the character and picked up the comic book in the first place. To me, episode 5 is peak Daredevil storytelling. And I think, again, that palate cleanser that got back to the basics and actually allowed me to enjoy episode 6 more. I don't know if I would have liked episode 6 as much if it had just gone right from 4 to 6. I think 5, I just can't stress enough how important I thought episode 5 was. Now, obviously, Disney Marvel realizes they took too long to get Daredevil into his suit. So I think they doubled up tonight's episode to get episode 6 here faster. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. This is what we got. So I don't think there's really any reason to feel bad about it, because I think what we should focus on, honestly, is just being happy that this show, it turns out, can cook. It does have the special sauce. It can do what it needs to do. It took a little too long to do it, but at least it's possible. And so I feel really good that we don't have to sit through more crap, and that season 2, which they're filming right now, might actually be like really good all the way through. Also, with these episodes, Daredevil feels more than ever, to me at least, like Marvel's Batman. And as a big Batman fan, I'm having a great time. How about you? How do you feel about Daredevil Born Again with tonight's 2 episodes? So the episodes are so different tonally. They really are, which is another weird reason to double them up. You would think they would be a 2-parter, but they're so not. So I'm going to go over them separately, starting obviously with episode 5. However, I will jump back and forth just a little bit because there are certain things that carry over to episode 6. And I want to bring them up when they should be brought up. All right, so I can't believe they didn't line up the St. Patrick's Day episode with St. Patrick's Day. They were, after all, so freaking close. Just a week late. Why did they debut? I'd be like, we have a St. Patrick's Day episode. Why don't we just move the premiere up 2 weeks or whatever, man? Or double up some other nights. Why don't we air? Maybe they should have aired 2 episodes a night from the beginning. And that could have really gotten us here faster. But let me tell you, as a New Yorker who just experienced St. Patrick's Day, New York really is a special place for the holiday. Even if you're not Irish, you get involved. Like Kamala's dad, Yusuf Khan, assistant bank manager. I just saw Novocaine, so I'm like, what? And I was thinking of The Mask, and I'm like, all these different stories taking place in a bank. But I love Mr. Khan. He's such a kind, fun guy, always up for a party, and once again, wearing green. He says his daughter, Kamala, is in Los Angeles visiting friends, which to me says West Coast Avengers. I'm like, LA. But maybe they're trying to say she's doing Young Avengers? But isn't Kate Bishop in New York City? Although, did Kate go to LA? I think that was like a recent, obviously it was a recent end credit scene. But anyway, all right, so speaking of Hawkeye, Jack Duquesne, a.k.a. the Swordsman, Zorro Light, shows up in episode 6. And I'm kind of digging this mini Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think that's what we've been talking about recently. Let the Avengers stay on the big screen while Marvel Knights is on the small screen, aka Disney Plus. Now, obviously, I don't know, Ms. Marvel is, she's not really a Marvel Knight, but I'd rather she'd be a Marvel Knight than a member of the X-Men. All right, so turns out Matt Murdock has never heard of Ms. Marvel, which I thought that was a little uncool. I'm like, Ms. Marvel has a hard enough time as it is. I think, he said he knew a lot about Jersey City, unless he was just being polite, but I think he would have heard of a superhero just across the river. All right, but the setup here is it's Irish on Irish violence. You've got a very Irish group of criminals, right? They're like, top of the morning to you. We're here to rob your bank. And they're unaware, though, that an Irish vigilante has just applied for and been turned down for a small business loan. So he's in a very bad mood, as we find out, because that's actually Daredevil in the Red Hood. Get it? I love it. Breaking that guy's leg in the trailer. So kudos to the way Marvel put their trailers together. I actually thought it made for a more fun experience with this episode. When we saw the bank, I was like, oh my gosh, that's the bank that's going to get robbed. It's going to go down here. And then to realize that brutal attacker in the alleyway is Daredevil taking down an escaping bank robber. I mean, that was just such a great moment. And that heightened it for me. I thought that was really wonderful. I was like, I would love it if more trailers were able to misdirect like this. I'm going to be honest with you, though. I do think that New York City here in this show has a vigilante problem. I mean, both the bank robbers and Matt Murdock kept saying you got to let the other side think they're in control. But clearly Matt is not in control. He's lost control. I think, anyone seeing somebody act like that the way he does in the alleyway, this is a man who has some problems and, maybe shouldn't be doling out justice on the streets of New York. All right, so this is Matt having problems is alluded to in episode 6 when his new girlfriend, turns out she might be using him because she's writing a book up next on vigilantes and she knows he's represented a few. Frank Castle, Daredevil. Obviously, she doesn't know he's Daredevil. And she's like, hey, could I interview them maybe? Could you introduce me? Matt, I feel bad for you. Now, she makes some comments about the power of a mask, her thesis statement for her book. Is it the person's true We've had all these discussions already with Batman, but that's okay. You can catch up with us, psychiatrist lady. Is it the person's true face, or does it free them from their humanity so they can be more animalistic? Or maybe it's a little bit of both. She's no Chase Meridian. I don't like Matt's new girlfriend. Do you? I don't know if it's the writing. I don't know if it's the casting, or like the book, maybe it's both. I think it's both. All right, so back to episode 5. Daredevil can't exactly suit up during the day, so he has to save the day as Matt Murdock, and those types of stories are always fun. We've seen them so many times before, but I just think they're great. Overall, I thought this episode was very well written, from the police detective coming up with a pretty darn good saucy joke when the bank robber demanded one in exchange for hostages. I was like, that's pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. It didn't make me laugh. I think it didn't make him laugh either. I think it made him laugh out of respect, because that was a good joke. I think her delivery was meh. But anyway, to the bank robber not getting an answer earlier on to his question, saying, we have a blind man. Do we have a deaf one as well? I was like, that's pretty good, buddy. That's pretty good. And chef's kiss. Matt super senses opening the super hard to open vault. I know it's a little obvious to some of you, but to me, I say classic. That's classic comic book superhero storytelling. And I loved it. I ate it up with a spoon. It was fantastic. Turns out the bank robbers don't want cash. They want a giant yellow diamond being held in a safety deposit box in the vault. I think there'd be a little cash in there. I'd be like, isn't there usually a separate vault for the safety deposit boxes? I've read a lot of comics. I've seen a lot of movies and TV. That usually is the way it is. All right. So anyway, it's for their boss, who we find out is Luca, who's been penalized for $1.8 million by Vanessa, as you might recall. And I guess this is him trying to find a way to get that money together. Is that Kingpin and Vanessa's safety deposit box? Interestingly, never comes up. I found that a little bit frustrating. I was like, oh, you missed the spot. Whose safety deposit box is that? And Daredevil switches out the diamond with one of the candies from Yusuf Khan's desk. Wow, he's super lucky that Mr. Khan noticed it in the candy jar before, say, another customer did who maybe wasn't as honest. I was like, you were taking a real risk there, Matt. And that just shows how good Matt is, because that could have financed his law firm. He should have been like, whose safety deposit box was that before, I don't know, maybe I return it. If it's Kingpin's, he should have maybe kept it. I don't know. All right, so again, to me, this is the kind of storytelling, particularly in a comic book, that comes along and makes you decide to keep reading a comic book that you were this close to dropping. Or sometimes it would pulls you back into a title that you did. This is happening to me right now with Catwoman. I haven't read Catwoman in a very long time. It's been just bad creative team after bad creative team after the magic that we had for a while. R.I.P. Darwin Cook. But, Ed Brubaker, great. The title was so good there for a while, but it hasn't been good in a very long time. But they just brought on a new creative team. And not only are these covers fantastic, but the stories within them are fantastic as well. The writing, very cool artwork. Actually, a little bit like Batman Year One and Daredevil style artwork. And a little bit of a Daredevil Batman type storyline. But in Japan. I'm loving it. It's a very, very good comic. And I highly recommend it, actually. So what did you think of episode 5? Do you think it was just filler, or did you like it as much as I did? Okay, now let's move to episode 6, where, speaking of comic books, this one got a lot more comic booky. Not just with a villain like Muse, but Daredevil and Kingpin find themselves slipping back into their old lives. And the show is better for it. But that's not to say that Wilson Fisk isn't getting the hang of being mayor. In fact, he tells Vanessa that it's not that different from being Kingpin. And he has some great lines this episode himself. I loved it when he told the police commissioner it wasn't a good look when the sanitation department realized the city had a serial killer before the police department. He's not wrong. That was great. How did the sanitation department find out? Well, they're not only finding the bodies, but they're the ones who have to clean up the Muse's graffiti, particularly the ones that insult Fisk. And so the thing is that the artwork doesn't come off that easy. So they've tried to figure out what they're working with so they can figure out how to clean it. And it turns out part of the material is human blood. In fact, they theorize that Muse has killed at least 60 people for his art so far. The look on Fisk's face as he looks at the hate graffiti about him that's made out of other people's blood. At first, I thought it was affecting him emotionally, and maybe it was a little bit. But he also saw an opportunity. As Muse starts including his latest victims in his artwork, Kingpin uses this as a scare tactic to get approval for his anti-vigilante task force, which is really his own police force. The overtime pay and no body cameras, the overtime pay the commissioner was asking for, the body cameras, the Punisher cops were asking for. And what do you know? That's who Fisk handpicks for his task force. It's all coming together, baby. I appreciate that. Although, wait a minute. Muse isn't a vigilante. So, yes, like in real life, Misk is using masks, the hiding of identities, as an impetus to take down everyone with masks. And as I said, I do feel that in this show, New York City is having a vigilante problem. If this guy is out there with a sword in broad daylight, things are out of control. I have a theory on that, though, in a moment. I think I understand what they're trying to say. But yeah, when you first look at it, you're like, what's going on here? But I also think it's pretty clear that Muse, again, is not a vigilante. So the name of the task force does not fit the task. I think it would be called the Anti-Mask Task Force. I just feel the press and the people would be stuck on the incongruity. Although, where is BB? Where is the press? It bothers me tremendously. But kudos to this show for having a villain as horrible as Muse, so that it would lead to the creation of Fisk's own personal police force. That's very clever, and you can see why they brought in someone like Muse. Although, here's where it gets even more interesting. Isn't the real issue is that the really good vigilantes, the professionals, get out of here, Swordsman, you're making everybody look bad. But the good professional vigilantes aren't doing their job. But wait a minute, maybe that's why Swordsman has stepped up. Maybe that's why White Tiger has stepped up. White Tiger, he had a heart of gold and an amulet of silver and jade, but he was not particularly good at being a vigilante, unfortunately. But they emerged. They had to emerge to do what Daredevil and Punisher stopped doing. In fact, that's what White Tiger's niece Angela even says. And she's really growing on me. This actress did a great job this episode. I liked her quite a bit. Punisher? He'd take down these dirty cops in a few days, maybe a few weeks, and he probably will. And look at Daredevil. When he heard Angela was missing and he felt the police couldn't get the job done, he should have called sanitation. But he suited up again and he found Muse in less than a single night. Just like an hour or two, he found him. I'm just saying. All right, so what a shot, though, when you have the glare of the subway train as it drives away, and then with his red costume blending in with the red glare of the light and the red brick of the tunnel, he emerges, running straight at Muse. What a shot! Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. It's been so long since I saw a superhero shot that amazing. Better than that sloppy, awkward, and I'm sure very expensive CGI shot earlier when Matt was swinging around from the rooftops. You know, Marvel, if you can't afford to have him do it, he doesn't have to do it. He never swung from the rooftops on the Netflix show, and none of us ever complained about it. I do like, though, how Matt can launch his billy clubs through the air, not only as a projectile, but it can then embed into the wall and yank him forward to speed up his punches. That was very cool. I was like, that looks great. Man, though, we almost lost 2 White Tigers on this show. I was really surprised how far they let Muse get with draining Angela. And I don't think any of that equipment was sterilized. That, to me, was one of the scariest things in the episode. I was like, oh my gosh. And I guess Angela didn't swipe her uncle's amulet from Matt because surely she would have worn it down to the tunnels. Who goes looking for a serial killer with their flashlight on? But you know what? She's just a kid. Although I still am getting Robin vibes for her for Daredevil, or at the very least on a show about how there are too many vigilantes in New York City. Maybe she's going to pull a hit girl. All right, so yes, the pressure is building on both Fisk and Matt this episode. With Matt, it's that Muse is just too big a threat. You know, Muse. I've made Fisk and Muse a celebrity couple. But anyway, Muse really is just such a horrific villain that he does push both characters, hero and villain forward. But with Fisk, though, in addition to what's going on with Muse, he just can't escape his old life. Luca comes to his office as the mayor to say he won't pay off Vanessa's fine. And Fisk tries to, intimidate him and increase it. But Luca don't look too intimidated to me. I'm excited to see, Kingpin, he's just starting to emerge. But you know what? You know who else doesn't look intimidated? All the rich people at Fisk's fundraiser. Vanessa points out that while Fisk says the key to getting something from somebody, criminal or politician, is to find out what they want and withhold it from them, Vanessa points out that Fisk is already giving these wealthy people what they want by having the fundraiser in the first place, and that's validation and, accepting that the wealthy people are the ones who are in control. The 1% of New York City, including the Swordsman, getting his Don Diego on. By the way, Zorro, also, Batman based on... So it's so funny. You have Batman based on Zorro and Daredevil based on Batman, and they're all kind of in the same show, and I'm really enjoying it. So again, the 1%, though, makes it clear that they feel the mayor, in this case Fisk, or whoever it might be for all time, will always work for them. I gotta say, they made the 1% particularly smarmy during the fundraiser, and I'm looking forward to Fisk, showing them that is not the case. Another sign that Fisk is turning back into the Kingpin is that he's literally getting bigger, as when he and Vanessa are getting ready for the fundraiser, his coat rips. I think it's one too many cheat meals in the basement with Adam, but yes, he is turning back into the Kingpin. Speaking of Adam, the grand finale of this episode is side-by-side fights for Daredevil and Kingpin, fighting for survival, fighting their old selves, but also perhaps reveling in their true selves. Oh, these fights were great. Daredevil takes on Muse with lots of flippy flips, which I really enjoyed, in Billy Club action. But I gotta say, of the two fights, Kingpin's was the one I enjoyed more. In fact, while it was cool to juxtapose the two fights, and I understood what they were trying to say with that, I did feel that it undercut both the fights because we weren't able to spend enough time with either one of them. Also, while the fights were happening on, I was furiously writing notes, looking up and down and being like, oh, that's great. Hold on. I don't want to break the flow of the scene, but I got to write down these amazing notes. But the raw power and the emotion in Kingpin's fight, to me, was greater. I loved it. At first, I thought he too was going down into the subway, or maybe Matt was dreaming or having a nightmare. But no, this was all too real. He was going down to see Adam, and he gives Adam the chance to escape. He even gives him a weapon, that axe. And he's like, come at me, bro. But of course, it's all just an excuse so that Fisk can wail on him. He's like, well, he had an axe. Oh, it was great. It was great. I loved it so much. And I think, he's been beating the crap out of Adam previously, but I think he took it to the next level this evening. I don't think he's ever given him an axe before. When Vanessa finds out that Adam is down there, because, Fisk says, I think Vanessa would want me to let you go. I'm not sure that she would. Will she be angry when she eventually finds out about this? Or will she be happy? Because it means that Kingpin, the man that she loves, not Wilson Fisk, but Kingpin, is back. It would seem both Daredevil and Kingpin are back on this show, and it is all the better for it. And Muse, well, Muse for now is in the wind, but I'm sure he's going to push both of them even further. So what did you think of tonight's back-to-back episodes? And do you think it's too late for many people to come back 4 weeks in? Can they bring back the viewers who they've lost? What do you think? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.